And we are back, and after 11 days of cup football, the Premier League returns tonight, where a bunch of new signings could be on show, in particularly tonight specifically, but of course over the course of the whole weekend. We have a couple of new managers in charge of Premier League clubs as well, so an awful lot of stuff to digest going into this weekend's fixtures. Let's find out what I think is going to happen over the coming days. And we do start with tonight's game, which is between Chelsea and Fulham. Over 300 million spent by Chelsea in the January transfer window. The majority of it on players that are going to be paid off in instalments. So be very interested to see what Chelsea do in the next couple of windows, because as far as I'm concerned, they probably can only spend like 50 million on anyone in the next few windows of how many instalments they're going to be playing on those players. So how many of them are going to feature tonight? I obviously feel like it's going to be a harder prediction to predict the Chelsea lineup than it is to predict the result for tonight. And quite frankly, it's a game that Chelsea simply have to win. But with all the stuff that's going on, obviously all these new signings, is Enzo Fernandez going to play? Is Mudryk going to make his first start? João Felix should be available after suspension. Raheem Sterling back from injury. Reece James and Ben Chilwell have said that Potter said yesterday that they should be available for some part in this game. Whether or not it's a start or coming off the bench remains unclear. And let's not forget that just a couple of weeks ago, Fulham beat Chelsea, and that was without Aleksandar Mitrovic. So it's just destined for Chelsea not to win this one tonight. It's a game they absolutely have to win, but I just feel there is so much pressure riding on this game, and with it being their biggest derby, especially from a Fulham perspective, this is the derby game that they look forward to the most. This should be a game that on paper Chelsea should be winning, but I've just got a feeling it's not going to happen tonight, and I'm going to go for 1-1. It's the scoreline that I went for when these sides met a couple of weeks ago, and obviously, like I say, Fulham did get that win, but I just think there is so much riding on this game for Chelsea. I just think it's destined to fall apart this evening, and who knows where that leaves Graham Potter if this is the result. Like I said, I would expect Chelsea to win this game, but that's going to be my prediction. I just have a feeling that it's just going to go wrong for them again tonight. And with all the disarray around who should be playing, players not even getting registered for the Premier League squad, and it's just absolutely destined to fall apart tonight, in my opinion. Obviously, it won't surprise me if Chelsea do win, but 1-1 is what we are going for. On to tomorrow's games, and we start with the early kickoff between Everton and Arsenal. And where we just had a team that have made a bunch of new signings, we now have a team that have made no signings but have appointed a new manager. Now, there was a lot of expectation that after selling Anthony Gordon to Newcastle for 40 million, Everton would use that money to bring in some new players, but Sean Dyche said that there wasn't anyone available on the market that improved on his current team. So that's a bold statement for him to say, maybe or not. It might be down to the board not giving him any of that Anthony Gordon money. But they go into the game against Arsenal, who are obviously top of the league, winning an awful lot of games at the moment, and Everton are really struggling. It also looks like they're potentially without any recognised forwards for this game, Everton. Obviously, Thomas Partey is injured for Arsenal as well, but they've done well to bring in Jorginho. I think that could end up being a fantastic signing at 12 million. I do really rate Jorginho as a ball player, so I think he'll fit into that Arsenal setup perfectly. I think this is a game that Arsenal just win. I try and bring some sort of drama to these predictions, like with the Fulham result, but I just don't see anything other than an Arsenal win here. And if Everton are without any recognised forwards for this game, I don't see them scoring either. So I'm going to go for 2-0 to Arsenal. On to the 3 o'clocks, and we start with Aston Villa against Leicester. Unai Emery performing near miracles, some would say, at Aston Villa. The results he's been picking up since he's taken over. Brendan Rodgers trying to salvage a season for Leicester after such a poor start. They brought in Harry Souttar on deadline day. Not really sure how much of an impact he's going to make. I can't see it being too effective. I think Aston Villa should have too much for Leicester. Even if Leicester were back on form playing the way they were playing the last couple of seasons, I'd probably still be going for an Aston Villa win the way they've been playing recently. So I'm going to go for 2-1 to Aston Villa in that one. Next up, it's high-flying Brentford against bottom of the league Southampton. And with that statement alone, it's not going to surprise you that I'm going to go for 2-0 to Brentford in this one. What I would say, though, is kind of what I said when I did my fantasy football predictions yesterday. I do think Southampton are playing a lot better under Nathan Jones. I can see them potentially getting a goal in this one, but Brentford's defensive record at home is so good. And with Ivan Toney still available, very unclear what's going to happen around his whole betting scandal, but he's still playing at the moment. So you'd expect him to be involved in the goal scoring as always in games like this. So I think 2-0 to Brentford is a fair prediction for this one. Next up, it is probably the team in the most form of anyone in the Premier League right now in terms of goal scoring, and that is Brighton and Hove Albion taking on probably the team with the worst form defensively in the Premier League at the moment in Bournemouth. And again, no surprises that I'm going to go for a heavy scoreline in Brighton's favour. I'm going to go for 4-0 to Brighton. I think they're playing some of the best football, if not the best football in the Premier League right now. Absolutely ripping teams to bits. I would not like to play against them right now. If, you know, as a Manchester United fan, I would be wanting to stay away from Brighton at all costs right now. They're playing so well. And Bournemouth, yes, they've done some relatively good business over the last few days. How many of those new signings will come into the starting lineup will be interesting to see. How much of an impact they'll make will be interesting to see. But for now, I think it's fair to say that we all kind of expect Brighton to take this one rather comfortably. Speaking of my club, Manchester United, they are up next, up against Crystal Palace in a repeat of the game which sort of derailed the momentum for Manchester United. Obviously, that late free kick from Michael Olise a couple of weeks ago, making the game 1-1. Back at home at Old Trafford, where we've won 11 games in a row, I still think we should be taking this one relatively comfortably. I went for 2-0 when it was the away fixture, so I'm going to go for the same prediction again. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Manchester United in this one. I would honestly expect it to be a little bit more. I think the football we've been playing, in particularly at home, with Jadon Sancho coming back into the setup as well, he looked pretty good the other day as well. Interested to see if Marcel Sabitzer gets any minutes, but I wouldn't be too complaining if Fred does start in that other midfield role. So, interested to see what we do. But I'd be expecting us to take this one, like I say, relatively comfortably. But I'm just going to err on the side of caution a little bit and just go for a 2-0 win in that one. Finally, for the 3 o'clocks, it is Wolves against Liverpool, a repeat of the FA Cup fixture we had a couple of weeks ago, where both teams played sort of relatively different lineups. Certainly from a Wolves perspective, they rested a lot of their key players. Liverpool took that one 1-0. But they've kind of built off of that performance and played well in the fixtures since. I think they played well against Brighton. Like I said, I just don't think you want to be playing Brighton at the moment. I thought Liverpool were a little bit unlucky to lose that one with the late goal from Mitoma, a brilliant goal. And Wolves just haven't really been playing well. They've been struggling for goals, struggling to create chances. Defensively, they've been okay without being amazing. And I've just got a feeling on Liverpool for this one. It wouldn't surprise me to see Wolves get a result, but I just think Liverpool are just starting to build their momentum back up again. So we'll see how this one goes. Obviously, if Wolves do get a result, then I'll just scrap that. But like I say, I just think a result against Brighton isn't the worst. To lose 2-1 against Brighton in the last minute isn't a bad result for Liverpool at the moment. So I think they're going to take this one. I'm going to go for 3-1. I think they have the capability to take Wolves apart if they really wanted to in this one. And yeah, I'm going to go for 3-1 to Liverpool. The evening game on Saturday sees Newcastle taking on West Ham. West Ham obviously got the result that they needed last time out. They've brought in Danny Ings as another striker option. I'm not really convinced that was a signing that they needed to make. They had Antonio, they had Scamacca. I think West Ham's problem, as I said a few times this season, is just overall consistency in their starting lineup. So I think adding another striker to that rotation is probably going to make things even more complicated. But I don't see them having enough to beat Newcastle. Obviously, we saw the other day that they can concede at home. Southampton proved that with a great goal from Che Adams. I'm not sure West Ham are going to have enough to cause any problems to Newcastle in this one. I'm going to go for 1-0. I don't think going the other way either. I think Newcastle will probably struggle to get the goal against West Ham. They've not been that great going forward in recent matches, Newcastle, but they've been grinding out the results, which is exactly what you need to get a strong finish in the Premier League. So I'm going to go for 1-0 to Newcastle in that one. On to Sunday, and we start with Nottingham Forest against Leeds. Another game which, in my opinion, could go either way. Nottingham Forest obviously have made infinite number of signings. I think it passed over 30 for the season with their signings on deadline day. Obviously bringing in Keylor Navas. Whether or not he'll be available for this one will be interesting to see. Obviously one of the best goalkeepers in world football, going to a side at threat in relegation in the Premier League is a very interesting one. And of course they made a few other signings as well, like John Joe Selvey, etc. On the flip side, Leeds United have lost Rodrigo, their key man, for 2 months. So they're going to have to rely on new signing Jorginho Urruta to do the damage up front. So we'll see what happens in this one. I'm not overly convinced Nottingham Forest get the win in this one, and Leeds have been playing relatively well recently. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that one. And finally, the main event of the weekend sees a repeat of the fixture we had again a couple of weeks ago between Tottenham and Manchester City. 4-2 to Manchester City at the Etihad, now going to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham, of course, without Antonio Conte due to his surgery, and we all wish him a speedy recovery. Apparently, he's going to be in the ground, but obviously not available on the touchline for health reasons. I don't see this being anything other than a Man City win. Tottenham just haven't been at the races in the last few games. I thought they'd put their season back around when they beat Crystal Palace 4-0, but they just played really poor against Man City. They played really poor against Arsenal. I just don't see it happening for them in this game. And Manchester City are again starting to rebuild their momentum after the Manchester Derby defeat. I think Manchester City take this one pretty comfortably. I'm going to go for 4-1. That might be a little bit insulting to Tottenham, but I don't think even the most hardcore Tottenham fan can be too surprised at that prediction based on their last few results. So 4-1 to Manchester City is my final prediction. And that is going to be it for today. As always, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on my predictions and give me some of your predictions for this weekend as well. Are you happy with your club's transfer window? Are you happy with the signings that they have brought in? Should Chelsea have been allowed to have spent as much as they have on their players, even if it is going to all be in instalments? And as always, drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the predictions we have got coming up over the next few weeks with the return of European football as well. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you very soon.